Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, am I right in counting dynamic effort sets as half sets? For example, 10 sets of 2 to 3 would count as 5 sets towards your total weekly volume. Yeah, that's actually the way that I count them personally, both for myself and for my lifters. Because again, what I always tell people, you want, for ideal hypertrophy, for a drug-free lifter, 10 to 20 quality work sets per week, per muscle group. Usually divided over 2 sessions, because if you're exceeding 10 in one session, you probably are not really growing from that. If we go with the available data that we have, you're probably not getting any bigger as a result. And again, stating that is for drug-free people. And some exercises we would count as half sets, right? Like bench pressing is probably half sets for your triceps. Rows are probably half sets for your biceps, right? Things like that, because they're not the most efficient primary mover. I count speed work the same way, right? Because we aren't getting close to failure. We're still hitting upper threshold fibers, but really we're only doing it with 3 or less reps, right? We're doing 3 or less reps with less fatigue. So I count them personally, if speed work is done correctly, as half sets. And that's how I choose to do it, right? And I think it works well in that system. All right, next question. Yo, what's your take on good mornings? Do you prescribe them for a day of back slash legs, 8x3 heavy? I was going to do them for a month, but not sure what I got out of it, and it wasn't heavy loading all the time. Appreciate it, bro. And I actually answered him in private because I know this lifter. Okay, for me, for good mornings, my lifters use them for 1 rep maxes. So do I, if they're advanced enough to max on them. A weaker lifter who's not strong at good mornings yet, we don't do that. We just start building them up with 10 to 20 rep sets. We build a base, and eventually I run them as a prescription of their box squat, right? So a lot of times I will set goals like doing 50% of their box squats for sets of 10, so on and so forth. However, when it comes to a good morning, just like any other lift, we can max on it. If you have a lifter whose form is good enough and they have a strong core, they have strong abs, they have strong erectors, we can max on the good morning. And if we max on the good morning, the protocols I like to run, I don't run a lot of sets on the good morning. I don't do like 8x3s. I have them do percentages of their max. We either do 3 sets of 5 at 80% of their max. We do 3 sets of 10 at 70% of their max, or we do 3 sets of 20 at 50% of their max. And again, we can look at the rep work and tell if they're close to ready to max or not on a good morning also, right? If we even look at 10s and things and we have it maxed, and let's say we could start at something like 40% of their box squat max for sets of 10. And we build that up over time. Ideally, what I'd like to see on the good morning though is for the good morning to equal the squat. At a minimum, I want to see a good morning equal a lifter's back squat. That's usually our first goal. If they back squat 405, I want to see their good morning up to 405. Okay, that's where I want to see it. Obviously, most lifters are going to back squat more than they box squat. In a perfect world, I would like to see my lifters good morning as much as they back squat. And some people are going to say, well, that's crazy. Well, I have lifters who do it. I've demonstrated it in a training collage before, right? Did I not show you guys in that training collage good mornings between 450 and 500 pounds? I absolutely did. Several of those lifters can hit as much on a good morning as they can hit on a back squat. I have multiple lifters who do that. Some of them are not even power lifters, by the way. They're fighters and things like that. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable strength standard. Perfectly reasonable. Of course, I've had another lifter who watches my videos, and he's a coach, had come in on my private wall before, and he did say, well, you know, like John Hack doesn't do them, so I don't think that I need mine to be that strong. But it's like, yeah, but if John Hack came in and spent 2 weeks learning how to perform a good morning, right? If he spent 2 weeks learning the movement, he would be able to do 700 pounds because he's already strong. He doesn't have any weak links on any of the muscles involved. He would still be capable of doing it. And if he couldn't, then we would know that there's a weak link that he could fix to get even freakishly stronger. But I bet that he could. And that's kind of the point where we're dealing with movements like this. But yeah, this is how I prescribe them. So actually, I don't have people do high sets. We only do like 3 working sets of good mornings, unless they're very new, and then I build them up to 5 sets of 20 to build work capacity. And then we start adding weight and start bringing those sets back down. We eventually work it back down to 3 by 20, then we work it down to 3 by 15, and we keep adding weight. We progress for them until they are strong enough to max on a good morning. And then once they're on conjugate and we're maxing on stuff all the time, if their base is good on the good morning, we'll start maxing on it, and we'll just program off the maxes with appropriate rep work based upon percentages. And it works great. It's how I get guys to 450 and 500 pound good mornings who are squatting 500 pounds. It's how we do it consistently. All right, next question. Why is the deadlift so much more taxing on your CNS? Doing deadlifts seems to just make you 10 times more tired than any other movement. Are you just exercising more general strength and health, merely attempting to reach a strength level that keeps day-to-day activities easy? No desire to compete at all. Is the large fatigue even worth it compared to other movements, if possible? Okay, I don't need to read that last part out. But, okay, first few things. No lift is taxing to the CNS. That is a complete myth that has been debunked in the laboratory repeatedly. In fact, and this is going to freak people out, doing a 20 rep set of concentration curls to failure creates more CNS fatigue than a deadlift does, than a max deadlift. And they're both extremely minimal. Endurance sports tax the CNS, right? Running impacts the CNS, distance running, distance cycling. That's what hits your CNS. This is, again, a complete lifter myth that needs to die out. It's been studied. We know it doesn't happen. Deadlifts beat your bones up. That's the part of the reason you feel the way that you do. There's something, again, very psychologically taxing about pulling a heavy weight from the floor. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have to turn on so many muscle units so quickly against a heavy weight that has a lot of axial loading, and you have no ability to preload a stretch in it. This is what makes the movement so fatiguing. But here's the other thing. I don't train my lifters on the deadlift. I mean, people will ask stuff like this, and realistically, very few of my lifters do rep work on the deadlift, like doing heavy fives and things, other than ranked novices. Once you're out of the ranked novice phase, I don't beat them up like that on a deadlift. We don't train the movement that way. So I would say, look, if someone wants to be athletic and strong and even have an amazing deadlift, you don't need to beat yourself into the ground with deadlifts. We do max pulls and we do speed pulls, right? And I don't have lifters usually, most of my lifters are exceptions. We don't do a max deadlift more than 1 rep every 2 weeks on it. And then we do speed work. We do speed pulls. Speed pulls do not beat you up the same way. We're just pulling for technique and power and compensatory acceleration. Just like we saw the thing with the dynamic effort work earlier. I mean, that's how I built my deadlift up, right? How did I get my deadlift to 600 plus? It was mostly off speed work and hypertrophy work and rotating max effort lifts. It's not necessary for us to do a bunch of heavy pulling from the floor and beat ourselves up to develop an elite deadlift. It's just not necessary. So you're asking a question of, is it necessary for general fitness? It's not even necessary to compete at the world level in the deadlift, to train it in that manner. We don't have to. I don't coach it that way, other than a few lifters who we do some fives and things because they do stuff a little bit different, who aren't doing speed work. That's the exception. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.